There is a truth that we all know, but rarely dare to look at directly. Nothing lasts forever. Everything around us, and even ourselves, is changing every single moment. The body is aging. Cells are born then pass away. Emotions come and go. Relationships form and eventually fade. The moment you are living right now will never repeat. In Buddhism, this truth is called Anicca, impermanence. All things formed from conditions must change when conditions change. This is not an abstract concept for philosophy or religion. It is an obvious reality that we can observe directly in daily life. Look at a flower. It blooms, becomes radiant, and then gradually withers. Look at yourself. You are no longer the child of the past, nor the person of 10 years ago. However, when the truth of impermanence truly touches the heart, not just as an idea but as a lived experience, it can leave us wavering. We ask ourselves, if everything will eventually disappear, then what is the purpose of living? If all things change, why love? Why try? These questions are not pessimistic, they are deeply honest. Every one of us has felt this when facing loss, illness, or separation. But there is another perspective that we often overlook. Imagine if nothing ever changed. The pain you carry would last forever. The mistakes you once made would freeze you in the past. Sadness would have no chance to heal. Without impermanence, there would be no growth, no chance to start over, no hope. It is precisely because everything changes that wounds can heal. It is because time passes that humans can forgive, learn, and grow. Music exists because there is the movement of sound through time. Stories exist because there is the transformation of characters. Love exists and becomes deeper because two people go through changes together. Impermanence is not the enemy of happiness. It is the condition for happiness to arise. If we cling tightly to everything and demand that they exist forever, we will suffer. But if we accept the changing nature of life, we begin to live more fully in every moment. Knowing that everything does not last forever does not make life meaningless. On the contrary, it makes every second precious. We love more deeply because we know time is limited. We cherish the present more because we know it is fragile. Impermanence does not take away the meaning of life. It is the very foundation for meaning to appear. In Buddhism, reality is not viewed from a single dimension. The Buddha pointed out that there are two ways to see life, two levels of truth, not to cause philosophical confusion, but to help humans better understand themselves and the world. Those two levels are Sammutisaka, conventional truth, and Paramathisaka, ultimate truth. At the first level, conventional truth, we live as normal humans in the everyday world. Here, your name has meaning. Your family is important. The work you do creates value. Relationships, responsibilities, success, and failure all have a real impact. If someone insults you, you feel hurt. If someone loves you, you feel warmth. All of these things are not illusions. They have practical nature and directly influence how we live. At this level, ethics, duty, and affection all have value. A father still needs to care for his children. A friend still needs to keep their word. A person in any profession needs to work with honesty. If we deny this level and claim that everything is just impermanent so nothing matters, that is a misunderstanding. Conventional truth helps society function, helps humans connect and live responsibly. However, when looking deeper, at the level of ultimate truth, the picture changes. When observing our body and mind closely, we realize that what we call I is not a fixed entity. The body continuously changes. Emotions come and go. Thoughts arise then disappear. Perception, memory, intention, all are processes in constant motion. According to this view, the self is only a temporary combination of the five aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. There is no unchanging center standing behind it all. There is only a flow of phenomena arising and ceasing every moment. When we see this clearly, the attachment to the ego begins to soften. We stop seeing everything as mine, I am, or belonging to me. The important thing is that these two levels do not contradict each other. They are like two ways of looking at the same ocean. At the surface, we see separate waves, each wave having a different shape, size, and movement. At a deeper level, we see that all is just water, not separate at all. The wave is not wrong. The water is not wrong. They are just two different perspectives of the same reality. Understanding this helps us live a more balanced life. In mundane life, we still love, work, and care for our families with all sincerity. But at a deeper level, we know that everything is a process of change. Thanks to that, we are attached without being clinging, committed without losing inner freedom. When talking about Buddhism, many people often think of letting go, renouncing the world, or leaving family life to seek enlightenment. However, that is a common misunderstanding. The Buddha did not deny the value of daily life. On the contrary, he spent a lot of time guiding people living among family, work, and society on how to live rightly and meaningfully. At the mundane level, our lives have real value. Family is important. Friendship is important. Right livelihood is important. How we treat others is important. Buddhism does not view these as illusions to be escaped, but as environments for practice and growth. The Buddha once taught very specifically about the duties between parents and children, between husband and wife, between friends, between teacher and student, between employer and employee. Those teachings are not vague or detached from reality, but very practical. A child needs to be filial and grateful. Parents need to love and guide their children correctly. Husband and wife need to respect, be faithful, and support each other. Friends need to be sincere and reliable. These things are not just moral standards, but also the foundation for a stable society and a peaceful soul. An important concept emphasized is karma, meaning simply action and the consequence of action. It is not a mystical reward or punishment, but a natural law. What we think, say, and do will shape the person we become. If we live with kindness, we create trust and connection. If we live with deceit and selfishness, we sow anxiety and division. Our lives gradually reflect the very choices we make every day. At this level, every action has weight. A word can soothe pain or cause more hurt. A small decision can open an opportunity or create long-term consequences. Therefore, living mindfully in every behavior is not something distant, but something very practical. However, no matter how well we live, life is not entirely within our control. The people we love may leave. Health may decline. Success may change. This is not because life is unfair, but because everything is subject to the law of impermanence. It is this very truth that makes the question deeper. If everything outside can change, where should we place the foundation of happiness? Understanding the value of daily life does not mean clinging tightly to it. We still love, work, and dedicate ourselves wholeheartedly. But we also gradually learn not to let our entire peace depend on fragile things. Living well in the mundane world is important, but it is also just the beginning for a deeper understanding of inner freedom. When reflecting deeply on impermanence and the changing nature of all things, a natural question arises. Is there anything in this life that is not swept away by time? Is there a kind of peace that does not depend on health, money, relationships, or circumstances? According to the Buddha and Apos, teachings, the answer is yes. And that state is called nirvana. Nirvana is often misunderstood as a distant heaven or a place to go after death. But the original meaning of this word is much simpler: extinguishing, like a fire goes out when there is no more fuel. What is extinguished here is not life, nor joy or love. What is extinguished is craving, hatred, and ignorance, the fires that keep the mind constantly restless. Look closely at yourself. Every time you feel happy because you have what you want, that joy usually comes with the fear of losing it. When you achieve a position, you fear losing it. When you love someone, you fear separation. When you have money, you worry about loss. Happiness based on conditions always carries a shadow of insecurity, because those conditions can change at any time. Nirvana is not about giving up on life or becoming cold and emotionless. On the contrary, it is a state of mind no longer controlled by clinging. You can still love, but no longer love in fear. You can still work, but no longer be bound by results. You can still enjoy joy, but not panic when it passes. What makes nirvana special is not because it brings a more intense feeling than ordinary joys, but because it is a peace without an expiration date. Everything with conditions has an end. But when the mind no longer depends on conditions, that freedom is no longer threatened by change. This is not a mystical state reserved only for people living separate from society. According to the teachings, it is the result of a deep understanding of the nature of reality. When you truly see clearly that everything is impermanent and nothing is worth clinging to, the mind naturally lets go. This letting go is not forced, but the result of wisdom. Nirvana, therefore, is not about having more of something, but about having less of unnecessary things. less craving to control everything, less fear of loss, less illusion about a fixed self that needs to be protected at all costs. When those layers of stress fall away, what remains is a profound stillness. In a world where everything changes, nirvana is seen as the only thing that cannot be taken away, because it is not a possession, but the liberation from the need to possess. Many people believe that to deeply transform the inner self, we must leave our current life, quit our jobs, separate from family, live in a temple or a retreat. But according to the Buddha and Apos, teachings, the path of liberation does not depend on where you are, but on how you live and how you see the world. That path is called the Noble Eightfold Path, 8 mutually supporting factors, not as a list to be completed in order, but as 8 spokes of a wheel turning together. What is special is that this path can be practiced entirely in the midst of a busy life. Right view and right thought are the foundation. When you begin to understand that suffering comes from clinging and ignorance, the way you look at life gradually changes. You no longer just run after accumulation, but begin to care about letting go. You no longer live just to achieve more, but learn to live more mindfully. This shift takes place in the mind, without needing to change external circumstances. Right speech, right action, and right livelihood relate directly to daily life. You practice by speaking truthful words instead of lies. You act with kindness instead of causing harm. You choose a job that does not hurt others. As a parent, you can practice with patience. As a person working in a competitive environment, you can practice with integrity. No special environment is needed, only mindfulness in every choice. Right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration are the training of the mind. This is where meditation appears, but not in an extreme way. You don't need to sit for hours in silence to begin. Just 10 to 15 minutes a day observing the breath, recognizing emotions, monitoring thoughts without reacting immediately, that already creates change. Regularity is more important than intensity. When you live ethically, the mind becomes more stable, and meditation becomes easier. When the mind is clearer through meditation, you live ethically more naturally. This is a positive circle, each factor nourishing the others. It's not a path that must be perfect to have results, but a process step by step, little by little. The most important thing is, you don't need to wait until total enlightenment to feel the benefits. Every time you recognize anger but don't let it dominate, that is a step of freedom. Every time you let go of an unnecessary desire, that is a step toward being lighter. Every time you live fully with the present moment, that is practice. This path does not require you to leave life. It invites you to change your relationship with life. Loving without holding tight. Working without being obsessed with results. Living amidst impermanence without losing inner peace. And in those very steps, freedom gradually opens up. There is a profound paradox in the spiritual journey. The more we try to hold on, the more insecure we are. The more we learn to let go, the more free we become. Many people think freedom is having everything they want: success, love, recognition. But in the light of wisdom, true freedom does not lie in possessing more, but in the ability not to be bound by what one has. We usually cling to 3 main things: pleasant feelings, the image of self, and control of the future. When everything goes as planned, we are happy. When criticized, we suffer. When the future is uncertain, we worry. But if we observe closely, we will see those reactions do not come from circumstances, but from the attachment of the mind. Letting go does not mean indifference or giving up responsibility. It is not ignoring life. Letting go is changing how we relate to experience. We still love, but do not try to possess. We still work wholeheartedly, but do not identify our self-worth with the results. We still plan for the future, but do not let fear dominate the present. When no longer clinging to the idea that everything must go my way, the mind begins to soften. Failure is no longer the collapse of the ego, but just an experience happening. Praise is no longer the only source of life for self-esteem. Change is no longer a threat, but a natural part of the flow. Inner freedom does not come in an explosive moment. It is built through very small times, when you recognize anger rising and choose silence instead of reacting. When you feel hurt but do not rush to retaliate. When you have the opportunity to prove yourself right but choose to listen instead of striving to win. Each time like that, a binding cord is loosened. Gradually, you realize that you are not the thoughts running in your head. You are not the emotions rising in your chest. You are the one who can observe all those things. The small gap between I and my experience is the space of freedom. As letting go deepens, joy also changes its nature. It no longer depends entirely on favorable circumstances. There is a foundational peace, gentle, non-ostentatious, that appears even amidst fluctuations. You can still be sad, but not desperate. Still be worried, but not in a panic. Still love deeply, but not fear loss to the point of losing yourself. Ultimately, freedom is not escaping from life. It is living fully in the midst of life without being controlled by it. When the mind is no longer pulled away by greed, hatred, and delusion, a wide open space appears. And in that space, we begin to taste a form of happiness not based on possession, a happiness of letting go lightly, of understanding, of a heart that no longer braces itself against the flow of reality.